Well, for more on Brazil's economy and the anti-government protests, I'm joined by Paulo Sotero. He's director of the Brazil Institute at the Wilson Center here in Washington. Thank you for joining us.
Pleasure.
Now, Brazil's economy is facing a number of issues. You have the corruption scandals, public debt, rising unemployment, high inflation. If you're in President Dilma Rousseff's shoes, how do you prioritize? What do you tackle first?
Well, she has an economic challenge, and she has done the right thing by nominating a very able economist, Joaquim Levy, to be her finance minister. And what you have to do is to make the fiscal adjustment and recover policy credibility in Brazil. The first term of President Dilma Rousseff had the impact of Brazil really squandering credibility. There is a fiscal problem. The second thing is that a lot of those measures have to be negotiated with Congress. They have to be negotiated with society, and she empowered her vice president, Michel Temer, a very able politician, for that part. So she has sort of taken a step backwards and has opened space for other people better prepared than she is to deal with this.
Now, as we look, the Brazilians have taken their frustrations to the streets. The protests have been tailing off in April as compared to March. But the latest polls still show that she's very, very unpopular. What do you think is the main reason for these approval ratings?
It's a disappointment on what's happening in the economy, disappointment with what happened in Petrobras. It's an ongoing corruption of massive proportion. And the president herself is not a target of investigations. I think that the calls for her impeachment will come probably to nothing. There are forces in society, including members of the opposition, in dialogue with people in the government, trying to find the path where you go forward with investigations, with trials that will come, with sentencing people, sending them to jail. At the same time, you try to address the short-term problems of fiscal balance, of credible policy making, and you muddle through. We have experience at this in Brazil. It is a complicated crisis. It's a complex crisis. It will not be solved overnight. And, you know, our sort of, we Brazilians have a sort of a negotiating soul. We have a talent for negotiation, and I think that talent will be on display. At the same time, people will remain angry for a while.
Now, the thing is, with people already being angry and possible reforms on the table, how does Dilma Rousseff's government avoid alienating the voters that got her there in the first place?
Well, she has alienated them already. Probably her party will see the consequences of that in next year's municipal elections that are very important elections in Brazil in more than 5,600 cities. And it's very difficult to see how the president, who is not a natural politician, recover from such a low ratings of unpopularity, and the economy is not going to get better anytime soon. So
now, speaking of the economy, we're looking at 0.1% growth this year, possible recession next year. So what should the long-term plan be to get Brazil back on track?
No, actually, it's recession this year. Brazil is probably in recession that could extend to next year because the numbers that were developed in terms of a fiscal surplus this year, they seem pretty doubtful already. This, again, it is going to be a long-term proposition. The important thing is to tell the markets, tell investors that this has a direction, that Brazil is tackling the problems. Once the markets are convinced of that, I think you will see a quicker, faster reaction by the Brazilian economy. It's, after all, an important economy in the world. But for the foreseeable future, it will be quite painful, and it will be very demanding on Brazilian leadership to act.
Now, given Brazil's current economy, are there any countries that benefit from Brazil being in this position?
No. If Brazil does well, Latin America does well, Brazilian trading partners do very well. Nobody benefits from a crisis in Brazil. Brazil is a very substantial country. It is a supplier, is a main actor in food security in the world, is a country that has a capacity to play in the global scene. Right now, though, Brazil has to be preoccupied with its own internal circumstances that, by the way, were mostly of our own making. This was not imposed on Brazil. This was not an unavoidable crisis. This was perfectly avoidable, was not, unfortunately. Now we have to face this issue. Brazil has overcome situations that were comparable to this. This is the 30th year of rule of law in Brazil. And so in the end, Brazil will come out of this probably better, stronger, but in the meantime, you have to face the issues, face reality.
So it's in the world's best interest to see Brazil succeed.
Certainly it is. It's always been, and Brazil has much to contribute to the world.
Well, thank you, Paulo Sotero, for joining us from the Wilson Center.